Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. My name is Mark Snyder, and this is Ohio Exopolitics. I wanted to do a show this evening for whatever reason. I just had this impulse to do a show, and I entitled it more on the Thomas Fire. And 1 second, folks. We have been talking about the Thomas Fire. It's a massive wildfire burning in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. In California, I think it's up to about 273,000 acres now. They say it's going to become the largest wildfire in California's history, I believe. So it's devastating what's happening with these fires. I've been covering this over the years. If you've listened to this show before, it's really hard to grasp and wrap your mind around Billy has talked about these hurricanes and these fires, and then to see this dramatically happen in such a bizarre and crazy way. This fire is larger than the cities of New York City and Boston combined. It has destroyed over 1,000 structures now. So we're to the point now where the fire season may in fact never stop. If this fire continues to burn into January, it's possible that we may have fires year-round in California, which is completely overwhelming. Let me just run down a few historic fires that we've talked about. The Rim Fire in Northern California burned 402 square miles. That was in 2013. It almost destroyed the national park, the Yosemite National Park sequoia trees. Pony Complex Fire in Idaho, about 150,000 acres. In 2014, the Funny River Fire, almost 200,000 acres. That's 300 square miles. Carlton Complex Fire in Washington was the largest fire in the state history, having burned almost 400 square miles, 256,000 acres. That's 4 times the area of Seattle. This Thomas Fire is another almost 20,000 acres bigger than that. Now, the monster of all fires, at least in our lifetime, is the Fort McMurray wildfire in Canada, which is 1.5 million acres burned. Now, one of the things that I've seen on a lot of these programs about the fires, and there's more fires I could tell you about. I'm not going to mention any more of these historic fires. But a lot of the people that are doing research, of course, are saying that these are unnatural fires, that they were started by weapons of various kinds, like laser weapons, directed energy weapons. Now, I don't know. I really don't know. But there are very interesting things that are happening. For example, the melting temperature of glass is between 2,400 and 2,600 degrees. And the typical forest fire is about 1,400 degrees. So typically, a forest fire wouldn't melt glass. Now, you can double check me on that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have misquoted on that. Maybe it is actually something like 1400 to 1600, which would put it in a reasonable range about melting glass. Can you melt glass in a fire? According to some websites, it says, can you melt glass in a fire? It says fire glass will not melt or discolor. It will not pop, create soot, ash, or smoke either. So maybe there's a special kind of glass. What is the melting point of glass bottles, for example? I'm not getting much information from that. That doesn't make sense. Can you melt a glass bottle with a lighter? There are lighters out there designed to burn up to 2,500 degrees Celsius, so it's certainly possible to find one that is up to the task for melting glass. So the reason I bring this up is a lot of the cars that are seen in, around the Thomas Fire in Santa Barbara, all the glass is just gone. It's just like it's vaporized. There's no glass whatsoever. There's no broken glass on the road. There's no melted glass anywhere. The glass is just gone, and the rubber's gone on the tires. There's nothing on. There's just rims on these tires. Now. The melting point of tires is pretty low, 316 degrees. So I could see how a forest fire could melt rubber tires, but we don't see any shred of tires on these cars. No glass whatsoever. And maybe 10 feet away from these completely burnt-out cars will be a tree that's just standing there with perfectly green leaves. It's astonishing. It's really, really astonishing. So, who knows? I can't really say absolutely what is going on here. People have said that there have been blue beams seen shot out of the sky. Again, I don't know. Why are these fires suddenly starting in the middle of the night? It's the strangest thing. There are about 8,500 firefighters on this fire. There are gigantic multi-million-dollar homes that are being burned down by this. So who knows? I mean, who knows when this is all going to come to an end? Who knows what is going to happen next in all this? It's been absolutely crazy, bizarre, interesting as heck, but not something that is enjoyable, at least from my perspective, because, what is going to continue to happen as these Meyer prophecies are fulfilled? We haven't even dealt with the earthquakes yet. We were slammed with hurricanes earlier. What about the two possible civil wars? What is going to happen next? These are huge questions that we have to face, and we're going to face here shortly. I just have a few clips that I'm going to play this evening. I didn't have that much time to make many more, so I thought we would go ahead and play some of those, and then we'll get back on to the rest of the show and see where it goes tonight. Tonight is kind of completely spontaneous, so gosh, I haven't even started my chat room yet. So let me play the clips.
Firefighters strike back, directly assaulting the monster blaze, consuming so much of Southern California. The massive Thomas Fire, burning since December 4th, has killed 2 and destroyed more than 1,000 homes and businesses. It grew even larger overnight, threatening some 18,000 homes.
This is insane. It's the biggest fire I've ever been on.
But this morning, a break in the weather. Red flag winds finally dying down, giving crews a small window to act.
With weather conditions favorable, firefighters are now going on the attack, trying to pare down hot spots like the ones in this canyon right behind me.
More than 8,500 fire personnel have been fighting the fire since it began almost 2 weeks ago. Many are exhausted. This team from Utah has been on the front lines since the few days after the fire broke out, working 24-hour shifts.
You ever seen a fire like this? I mean, this is pretty...
We've been on big ones, but not like this, not with all the homes.
Many here have been away from their families for weeks.
We'll get them home for the holidays is the goal.
Those affected by the fires showed gratitude to the first responders.
A smile and a thanks, and that's really all we can do right now.
And so did some of the area's more famous residents. Oprah tweeting, "God bless every firefighter and their families." And Katy Perry sending a big thank you to all the firefighters and first responders. Meanwhile, today was the final journey home to San Diego for fallen firefighter Corey Iverson. People paying their respects. In a battle raging into its 3rd week, firefighters now hope they've turned a corner.
This fire is devastating. More than $100 million in damage so far. Part of this home reduced to rubble. The fire is now 40% contained, but it is still so large, and it's still growing.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
It's hard to believe it. 2 weeks ago tonight is when that fire started. You know, we were here Tuesday morning on this street, driving by this home and others like it, firefighters dousing the homes with their water, and they still weren't able to save it. 2 weeks later, you can see the destruction is just massive through here. About 1,000 different buildings were destroyed by this fire so far. It's been a few days since they lost one, thankfully, and they're starting to get a handle on it. The winds and the weather is starting to finally get better here, but for 2 weeks, this fire's been going on now. 270,000 acres, the 3rd largest in California history. Unbelievable. It's nearly 420 square miles, almost the size of the city of San Antonio. It's 45% contained at this hour. The number is expected to go up, with some 8,500 firefighters still battling the flames in a number of different flanks of this fire, which, again, starting to get a better handle on it, but they won't have full containment until after New Year's. Now, while things are calmer today and over the weekend, we did see some erratic winds, still very dry here. The Santa Ana winds over the weekends gusted up to 65 miles an hour on Saturday, caused a few flare-ups near Mount Montecito, which is about 35 miles from us. Nearly 18,000 homes and businesses are still officially at risk, and this fire, again, has already burned some 1,000 structures.
We were able to do prepping in these areas days before to allow the fire to burn around some of these homes. We were able to fire out some of them, but unfortunately, when you have winds that severe, and we all saw it yesterday, you just physically cannot save every home.
A somber day on Sunday as a funeral procession stretching some 200 miles from Ventura all the way to San Diego was held for fallen firefighter Corey Iverson. He was from the San Diego area. He died on Thursday from smoke inhalation and burns as he was fighting this fire. Hundreds lined the roads waving American flags as his hearse passed by. The 32-year-old Iverson leaves behind his pregnant wife, Ashley, and a 2-year-old daughter. Donations from a GoFundMe account continue to pour into the family. I can tell you that, Bill, as I give it back to you here in this area in Ventura, I know a number of folks that live here. They were on the overpasses watching that procession, posting some of the videos online. And then once that was done, they came here to homes like this and spent hours helping their neighbors sift through the ashes. And any little memento they find, they'll post it on social media as kind of a tribute that it made it through. But as you can tell, Bill, there's so much that did not make it through here. Yeah. And this fire could soon be the largest in the state's history. The last one was the largest right now is the Creek Fire from 2003. We covered that one as well.
We begin with KCAL 9's Jeff Wynn live on the front lines in Santa Barbara. Jeff?
Well, there you go. A little bit more information. The fire's up to 273,000 acres now, I believe, roughly. It is probably going to top out as the largest wildfire in the history of California, bigger than New York and Boston combined, 7 times bigger than San Diego. Contact Report 215, enormous firestorms and gigantic hurricanes will sweep over the USA and bring devastation, destruction, and annihilation, as from time immemorial never before will have happened, not only in America, but also all of Western industrial countries, which still live at the beginning of the new millennium in the delusion that they can dominate and rule over underdeveloped nations, third world nations, will not only lose influence over these, but must defend themselves against them. According to the prophecies of Enoch, the truth about the industrialized countries is that they only appear to be true civilizations, but in fact they are not. Because more and more at the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the third millennium, they will disregard all true love and freedom. So our societies are not really true civilizations. And one of the things that's mentioned in the Might of Thoughts book is that we as a humanity here on the earth are ill in our consciousness. So let me read a little bit here from the Might of Thoughts. Although the planet Earth is a true paradise, the human being certainly does not live in a celestial body of pure bliss, on which there would be no problem areas or areas of conflict which he or she would not have to overcome consciously, mentally, and psychically. And one of the things we're dealing with here, I think, with these growing catastrophes, is learning to be able to deal with all this psychically and mentally. And precisely because it affects virtually every single Earth inhabitant who has a human nature. Every individual is thus somehow thankful that the creational laws and recommendations offer him an opportunity to improve his or her life, psyche, consciousness, character, morality, life circumstance, mental world, indeed, through the might of right, positive, and equalized thinking. Remember, you need to tell yourself that you're confident, you're optimistic, you're relaxed, you're cheerful, you're enthusiastic, you are in harmony. I tell myself, I am calm, I'm satisfied, I persist, I persevere, I endure, I'm satisfied, I have hope, I am the master of my own destiny, I'm the forger of my own fortune, I create my own good luck through my good thoughts, good feelings, my good habits, and the good circumstances in my life. My good thoughts create good feelings, and good feelings also will create good thoughts. What I think I make real, what I think about myself, I become. And this is a very important concept as well. And that's one of the reasons why we must make every effort to clarify our thoughts. Because when you clarify your thoughts, they become more valuable. They have more of a purpose, and they help make your life more harmonious. To clarify means to make less confused, to make easier to understand. So the clarification of your thoughts is important. Klärung is the German word for clarification. Another thing to look out for is that we do have wrong, useless, negative, impure thoughts that need to be eliminated to obtain space for the neutral, positive thoughts. And one of the things that Emmanuel said is that everything human within the human must die, but everything of the creation within them must rise and embrace creation. That is why our false ego, our errat self, is threatened by our evolution, because ultimately everything within the human that is human must die, and everything in the human of the creation must rise and embrace the creation. We are truly the masters of our psychical state, and our consciousness is like a garden filled with healthy, beautiful plants. And when you start a garden, it's certain that some form of plant is going to appear in it. So if your consciousness, if your garden is correctly cultivated, it will grow beautiful, luxurious plants. If you do not remove those negative thoughts out of your consciousness, then those thoughts will grow wildly, much like destructive weeds. And if you don't pull these negative thoughts out of your consciousness, they'll be exactly like weeds. They'll take on their own life. Believe me, they do. And when a human starts a garden, he must remember to plant good seeds in it. And you've got to plant good thoughts in your consciousness, because they produce good and healthy, more good and healthy thoughts. And they make a good and healthy psyche. What happens when negative thoughts rotate is your thoughts become narrowed. You cannot think anything but negative thoughts. And the negative thoughts repeat over and over again. And whoever has a negative thought will soon allow himself to be controlled by them. So despite these fires, despite these hurricanes, despite the things that are coming, do not allow your negative thoughts to rotate. Do not allow yourself to be shaken and knocked about by the circumstances of life. A circumstance is one of the existing conditions affecting us. Examples of condition might be your social position, your state of health. You will become the master of your entire life if you practice self-cognition, self-examination. Self-cognition is knowing yourself. That which the human being thinks he makes real, and that which the human being thinks about himself, he or she becomes. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary that good and positive thoughts be tended and nurtured, and that the human being should have a good opinion of themselves. And this is also what it says in the book called The Way to Live, that we need to fulfill our duty to ourselves. And that means no self-punishment. That means no thoughts of inferiority. That means to groom yourself. That means to take care of yourself. Because that which is thought fulfills itself sooner or later. Therefore, the human being is always the Lord and master of his own thinking, and the Lord and master of his own life if he learns to control his thoughts. And thinking begins in the womb. And the human being ultimately attracts what he or she is. And the Meyer material, the Meyer material, of course, talks about the universal consciousness, and that there's not a God in the sense that the religions teach, but that the concept of God really is more about your inner self, from which your thoughts and your might are created. Therefore, you create through your thoughts. You create your states. You create what is a state of actual inner freedom, or a state of inner imprisonment. So if you steer your thoughts then that will lead to inner freedom and good circumstances. And the Meyer information says that you shouldn't pray to a god or a saint, but that these thoughts are fed out of the consciousness into your inner consciousness. So you have a fragment of the universal consciousness within yourself. So you don't have to be imprisoned by an addiction. There's lots of addictions out there, believe me, just waiting to control your life. Alcohol, of course. Other things, other kinds of addictions, like video games sound silly, or watching too much TV, or eating too much food. There's so many addictions out there. There's a group called the Dark Order that's talked about in the Meyer material that wants mastery over the entire earth, mastery over humanity. They want to attain money and power, and they're kind of focused on spreading hatred. And this is a very dark group. And I want to talk just a little bit, because a little bit more about this, not much more. I want to keep the show short this evening, because there's a fellow that I'm going to have on the show Thursday, or Friday, Cody Snodgrass, that is going to tell us a little bit more about what's going on with the New World Order. And I want to talk a little bit about what he's going to discuss. One of these things he's going to discuss is called Operation Indigo Skyfall. Now, the Meyer material says there's nothing going on with these chemtrails. Nothing. It's just normal pollution coming out the back of planes, and it's really something that's caused by the state of our atmosphere. And I'm not arguing against that, but I want at least to present to you another point of view. I don't want to always just give you the Meyer point of view completely. I just don't think that would be objective to do that. Let me tell you quickly, or try to tell you quickly, what some of the things that Cody has said about this. And you'll learn more on Friday about who he is and where he comes from and who he worked for. There were civilian flights across the airspace near Iraq during the Desert Storm. And these civilian flights allegedly sprayed nano-aluminum and saturated the skies over these battlefields. And this electrified the sky. They sprayed billions of particles. They formed a dome over Baghdad, and this helped to increase the range of electronic devices. So, and this helps HAARP push clouds around when they do this sort of thing. Anyway, this operation that I'm going to tell you about just briefly is codenamed Indigo Skyfall, and they picked this name for a reason. Anyway, we are under attack. We are being attacked via the air, via the water, and via the food. And there are nanoparticles, barium and aluminum, that were sprayed during this operation, in Operation Desert Storm. And they're very small particles that form clouds that go to horizon to horizon. And these chemicals persist. They hang in the sky, and you've seen them before. And it didn't used to be that 10, 15 years ago. If nothing else, we can all agree it's terrible pollution, I hope. Anyway, according to Cody and others, the nano-aluminum passes the blood-brain barrier in the brain, and human beings have no defense against this. The nano-aluminum gets into our food as well. We inhale these particles, they go straight into our brain. Our body has no defense for this sort of thing. The nano-aluminum gets into the food and the crops. And there's only one kind of crop that's resistant to this nano-aluminum, and it's Monsanto's crops that contain something called glyphosate. which is a very bad poison for human beings. Our water is fluoridated, and when these nano and aluminum particles and the glyphosates come together with the fluoridation that's in the water, the toxicity increases 100-fold. So the nano aluminum, the glyphosate, and the fluoride makes things incredibly toxic. Okay? And the pineal gland is affected by this. Some people say that the pineal gland is the seat of the soul. Billy probably has some much more intelligent things to say about that. But anyway, when you combine glyphosate, nanoaluminum, and fluoride together, the pineal gland will secrete calcium to protect itself. And the calcification of the pineal gland is part of the purpose of this Operation Indigo Skyfall. The shell over the pineal gland has the effect of dumbing us down. And this all started with the Nazis, who were trying to keep people in the death camps. And the Nazis could not keep up with the volume of people that Hitler wanted to kill. So they put the high doses of fluoride in the water, in which kind of calmed the people down. So the New World Order is attempting to dumb us down and stop the function of our pineal gland, stop our spiritual connection. So this is what's going on right now. I probably shouldn't talk about it much more than that. It's a little introduction into the show. It looks like it will be on Friday. Cody Snodgrass, he's an ex-CIA insider. He did Black Ops, which means he blew things up, and I think he probably killed people as well. I'll let Cody tell you more about his background. I've got also a guest scheduled for the 20th, which would be Wednesday, a fellow who can give you confirmation on the whole story about the letter J and how the person that we call Jesus Christ could have never been called Jesus Christ during the time of his life, because there was no letter J. The letter J is only about 500 years old, according to my research here. So we're going to get another person that will confirm that as well. I've got a couple other guests which haven't really responded. So this is where we are. I wanted to touch base quickly on this December 18th on Monday evening. A very short show. You've been listening to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. Hopefully we'll talk to you Wednesday, if not sooner. Bye-bye.